welcome back to the GFD or Gym for Dummies. Today we have GFD part 4. This is going to be structuring your cut and kind of learning how to be in a calorie deficit without making it complete and utter hell for yourself. I had to throw this in real quick just in case y'all thought I was just some head behind a screen. I'm still currently cutting, but this is the look we're rocking with at the moment. I do know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to toot my own horn too much, and we're going to ignore what's going on here because this is not part of the picture. If I could make my mouse bigger to cover that up, I would. But we are going to look at this here. I do know what I'm talking about. I am not just a voice in a head. You know what I mean? We do this shit in real life. So this is going to be the first part of learning how to structure a cut. This is going to be setting your goals, because if you do not know what it is you are looking for, then you are not going to be able to ever really achieve that, right? Because you are unsure of where you want to go. So before you begin your diet, you need to know what you wish to achieve, and self-honesty is going to be crucial. I kind of included this here, but this is kind of redundant, you know what I mean? Because you are going to look at yourself and you are going to know, like, you're going to look at yourself and you're going to see if you have a lot of fat on your body, or if you don't, or if you need to cut and you don't. Just really look at yourself in the mirror and be 1,000,000,000% honest. Check your weight, check your whatever, check your stats. If you are unhappy with where you are and you wish to lose weight, then you are in a position to cut. And what I say here is you should either work to a look or work to a weight. You can kind of do both at the same time if you have an estimate of when you will look good. But when I say work to a look, let's say you have 2 out of your 6 abs and a bunch of still lower belly fat, and your goal is to get rid of that lower belly fat and have a 6-pack, then that is what you're working for. If you are someone who is just at an unhealthy body fat percentage or body weight and you are extremely overweight, let's say you just want to lose 20 pounds, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be only one, it can be both, but just set these goals so that you know what it is you are working for. I included this down here because this is kind of going to be, this is the healthy range. If you were above this, I definitely recommend cutting for men. If you're above 22% body fat, if you're above 25% body fat as a woman, I definitely recommend you cut. And this is kind of a high range. I know a lot of people, for beginners, you don't really ever want to be below 15% body fat because there can be some adverse health effects behind getting super duper lean. But if you are in the gym longer, you can obviously go to a lower percent body fat. It's just kind of going to be tailored towards you, but this is going to be kind of the peak of your health, even going down to 12 for men and 15 for women, but this is kind of the high ranges just to be safe. So this is going to be the first start of actually doing your cut, is figuring out your maintenance calories. And because to have any effect on your weight, you must need to have a rough estimate of your maintenance calories. Otherwise, you're not going to know how many calories you need to eat to lose the weight. And in order to find your maintenance calories, I just put here, refer back to GFT part 2, find a TDEE calculator, whatever. In this example, I put in my own stats here. 20-year-old male, 180 pounds, 6 foot tall, moderate exercise, 2840 calorie maintenance daily. So once you have your maintenance calories, to begin kind of a deficit, you don't really want to go too aggressively. Maybe in another video I can talk about how to structure an aggressive deficit. But especially if this is your first time, you're not going to want to do that because it can be much less sustainable, and it requires much more discipline on your part, and you have to be much more focused in that way. And it can kind of be unhealthy for people that are perhaps overweight, because overweight kind of comes with, or being overweight kind of comes with worse eating habits and whatnot. So when you're typically starting a deficit, just to avoid potentially maybe excessive binge eating, maybe overeating, maybe just like you don't want to set yourself up to disappoint yourself. And if you're under eating every day, like extremely, then it's gonna, those cravings and all these things are gonna be much higher. And I don't really want to set people up to feel disappointment in themselves, because these aggressive cuts are more so for people with more experience and people that are aware of what they can tolerate. So when you're first starting a deficit, I say 300 calories is what you kind of want off, right? and 500 is kind of the maximum end, and this will result in hopefully 0.5 to a pound of body fat loss weekly. And that's really going to be all you're pushing for. If you're losing much more than that, you are in a very aggressive deficit, and being in that state for a prolonged time is going to have negative impact. So I just say 300 to 500 calories off of what your estimate maintenance is. And I just put in the calculation here to kind of find your rough macros, because what I'm going to recommend in essentially all of these videos is high carb, adequate protein, and lower fats. Obviously not too low of fats to support hormonal function, but just as low as you can go. And what I recommend for this, as you can see here, by the time this is 0.2, this is going to be your protein here. So 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. That's what this 4 comes from. And so whatever your pound of body weight is, you're going to put in here. As you can see, I did here 180 for the 180 that I had before in that maintenance slide. And 2,400 total, because 2840 minus 440, 2,400. This is kind of more on the aggressive end, but still. So then once you have this total amount of calories estimated, you use this, right? This calculation here to figure out the amount of protein and the amount of calories you're gonna be getting from that protein, just 1 gram per pound of body weight, roughly. You can go a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but as long as you're right around this range, you'll be good. And then for this, your total calories times 0.2. So you will be essentially allowing 20% of your total calories to come from fats, and then times 9 for the 9 calories per gram of fat, and then that will equate to 53 grams or 480 calories in this specific example. It'll be different for yourself. And then you basically just subtract these two numbers from the total calories, and then divide that by 4 to figure out your total amount of carbohydrates that you'll be eating in a day. And that'll be 300 grams in this scenario with 1,200 calories. And then this is kind of how you get that macronutrient rundown, because I don't recommend you should be even trying to lose weight if you are not going to be tracking your macros. And so if you are unfamiliar with tracking your macros, download a macro tracking app. I recommend Macro Factor. It works very well. But tracking your macros is what will allow for you to make sure you are feeling your best in your deficit, because you are making sure every day that you get enough protein to build muscle, you get enough fats to keep your hormonal function active, and you're getting enough carbs to keep your calories at an adequate amount and support your performance in the gym. So use a calculation like this, figure out your own way of doing the calculations, but just figure out a rough amount of macros where you're eating 15 to 25% of your calories from fat. I kind of recommend not really going below 20, but you can go to 15 if you want to run it with that approach. But make sure you're monitoring how you feel. 1 gram protein per pound body weight, and then getting the rest of your carbs from the rest of your calories. And that is how I'd recommend starting a deficit. And then talking about it again, preserving your training in a deficit. People oftentimes notice a decline in their training. This is oftentimes linked to a lower amount of carbohydrates in a diet. That's why I recommend to keep your carbohydrates higher, right? Because if your carbohydrates are extremely low, then your body is not getting enough glucose, not getting enough energy. Your cells are going to be very depleted. Your muscle cells are going to be depleted. They'll be less hydrated, because glucose is what holds the water in your cells. The carbohydrates are really the key to keeping your training at its best. And so to prevent this, we want to make sure we're getting the most out of our carbs as well. So this is kind of a general rule of thumb. Save 80% of carbs for training, 40 to 45% fast digesting and pre-workout meal with low protein and no fat, because protein and fat are both going to slow down your digestion. So having a extremely high amount of protein, or really any fats at all, in your pre-workout meal is going to mess you up, right? It's going to slow down your digestion, make the fats less available for your body to use, and take more time to converting them into glucose, which is not really what you want before your training, because you want your glucose to be all the way up so that you are having the most energy for your training. And then I recommend 35% to 40 in a fast to mid digesting and post-workout meal with moderate protein and still low fats. This is what this is going to do, is it's going to support your recovery, right? Because all this glucose is going to drive all this protein to the cells, replenish your cells, and allow muscle protein synthesis to be more apparent, because the energy that you're providing your body with the carbohydrates is going to make your body into essentially a muscle building machine, right? Because it is driving you have more energy available to drive the protein to the muscles and for your body to synthesize the protein within your muscles and to develop more muscle. And then I say low fat again, just because the fats will slow this down. And so structure can vary based on your schedule. So I said 40 to 45% fast digesting and pre-workout meal, but say you are someone that eats 2 or 3 times before you train, you can put slower carbs, like split up this 40 to 45% that you want pre-workout and put maybe, let's say, 15% in the meal before your pre-workout meal, right? In a maybe a little bit of a slower adjusting carb that you're eating maybe 2 hours before your workout, 1.5, 2 hours, and then save that other 25% for 20 to 25% for 30 minutes to an hour before your training, and then keep the same structure with low protein and no fats and those fast adjusting carbs, and that will be adequate for you. But it's all kind of depend on your schedule. Just make sure you are getting the carbs in before you work out, whether it be right before or a bit before or a bit of both. Just make sure the carbs are in your system and digesting adequately before you train so that you can feel good going into the gym, right? You don't want to show up to the gym and feel like shit, because then you show up to the gym and you feel like shit. If you feel like shit, you're going to train like shit. You're going to get weaker. If you get weaker, you're losing muscle, right? You don't want to lose muscle what you cut. You want to be jacked, right? You want to be shredded and jacked. You need muscle to be shredded and jacked. Another thing that's going to be really important when you're trying to lose weight is your meal timing, because you don't ever want to feel exceptionally hungry when you are in a deficit, right? You want to be trying to combat that feeling as much as you can. So now that we know that you're going to be eating majority of your carbs around your training, you kind of need to know what to do with the rest of your macronutrients. And what I recommend is if you try to eat 3 to 5 meals a day, and if you're going all the way down to three, I recommend throwing in like having your pre-workout meal be a snack, or having one like a small meal or a snack alongside the 3 meals, because that's just not a lot of eating in a day. And eating more consistently is going to kind of be better in or eating more often, and even just like a little bit smaller amount is going to be better in fighting the hunger. And you kind of want them all to be evenly spread out throughout the day. And I recommend trying to put, like, obviously, if you're on the higher meal spectrum, you're going to have the smaller hours apart spectrum. Like, if you're eating 5 meals a day and each one is 2.5, 2 hours apart, that's fine. But if you're eating three, obviously, trying to push it to 4 hours apart, since those meals are going to be bigger anyways. And since we know that you're going to be wanting to get like 80% of your carbs and not too much protein and not too much fats in your nutrition around your training, kind of save the rest of your macros and spread them out evenly in every other meal that is not your pre and post workout meals, right? So like in all the other meals, kind of keep fats the same, protein the same. And with the last 20% of carbs, what I kind of recommend is to not really eat carbs in majority, like in all your meals outside of your training. Keep your carbs pretty low, or be trying to get net carbs, like keep your or try and get them from like trace sources of carbs, like things like fruits or vegetables. And then with your last 20% of carbs, if you are able to put that in your meal that you eat in your last meal of the day, what that is going to do is that's going to help you potentially fight any cravings and help your quality of sleep and help you feel more full, because carbohydrates kind of allow you to make your food taste better, as well as they soothe they soothe the hunger in kind of a different way than your proteins or your fats do, in the sense that they really nuke your leptin or your hunger hormone. So putting that in the last meal of your day, and they also help you sleep, because that it's kind of sounds counterintuitive, but it gives you the energy to sleep well, like to recover well and to get the most out of your sleep. And it can also help improve your quality of your sleep. So that is kind of what I recommend when it comes to meal timing. Just bang out your carbs in your pre-workout and post-workout meal. And then for the rest of your macronutrients, just keep them all pretty evenly spread. And then a little bit of carbs before bed, alongside, of course, an even protein and fat count to the rest of your meals. And that is really all I can necessarily say about meal timing. This is gonna be another really big part of cutting is cardio. It's it's recommended because it's not needed. It really is all calories in and calories out at the end of the day. But what the cardio is going to allow you to do is to eat more food while getting better results, right? Because the more food you can eat, the more nutrients you're providing with your body. And if you're able to eat more food while maintaining that weight loss, how can it have negatives? You know what I mean? You're eating more, getting more. You're allowed to eat more, get more macros, get more micros, right? More fuel, right? And if this cardio is going to allow you to do that, that's something I'm going to recommend. So what I recommend here is in the gym, I like to start with something that's going to be easy for you that you can do for a long time. So I say just 15 to 20 minutes, 5 times a week, right? Whether that be incline walking, running, on the bike, on the elliptical, on the Stairmaster, and just 15, 20 minutes, 5 times a week. This is going to make the cut go more smoothly for you. And it's also going to help you build the discipline, right? Because losing weight is all kind of a matter of delaying your gratification, right? Like it's a waiting game. It's something you have to stay consistent with, and being able to commit yourself to this is only going to make your life easier. It'll make you a more disciplined person. It'll just be better for you. And then out of the gym, you want to be remaining relatively active in your days to limit having to drop calories, right? Because if your goal is to lose weight, why would you not want to be an active person, right? It can only help you. So what I recommend here is whether you have an Apple Watch or a Apple phone or a Samsung phone or whatever, you should have some way of tracking your steps, like whether it be just the health app on your phone or like I said, whatever, but you have a way to track your steps. And I kind of recommend 8,000 to 10,000 steps daily if you are serious about losing weight. If you want to be a bit lower, if you want to be a bit higher, I just recommend staying consistent with it and trying to get at least a similar amount every day with kind of maybe a 500 each way buffer. Just to kind of allow you to remain consistent and help you out on the process towards your goals. This next slide here, I'm going to talk about controlling variables. Like I said, the most important thing in a deficit is going to be staying consistent. Losing weight is literally a science experiment that you are running upon yourself. If you are constantly doing things differently, today you ate this many calories, and today you ate that many calories, and today you did this many steps, and today you did that many steps, and today you did your cardio, but yesterday you skipped it. You're just never really going to know, right, what's working and what's not because you're never really doing the same things, right? So if you want those consistent results, you need to be putting in the consistent efforts, right? So things that keep the same or at least as close as possible, your diet, try to keep your macros, calories, and food types. And what I mean by this is just eating at least somewhat similar foods every day. You don't have to follow a super strict meal plan, but eating similar food is going to allow your body to digest very similarly. Your body will get used to digesting these foods, and then you won't really have as many fluctuations in your weight because your body is used to what you're giving it. You know what I mean? And so it'll be more, your weigh-ins will be more consistent this way. And I didn't put it in here, but also your water consumption should be pretty accurate or pretty consistent at least, because that is also going to heavily affect weight fluctuations, and keeping your water high will just help you feel better. I recommend about anywhere from 4 really to 8 liters should be fine. But just pick something within that range. Maybe if you're not used to drinking a lot of water, start at 4. And if you feel that you're still maybe a little bit dehydrated on 4, put it up more, right? Because you're training hard, you're losing weight. You can't really be too hydrated unless you're waterboarding yourself. And then for cardio, I just kind of say to keep the machine intensity level or speed and duration the same. Like let's say you decide to do incline walking as your form of cardio, stick to it, do the same incline walking at the same incline, the same speed, and for the same amount of time every day, just so that this way you know if it's working or if you need to do more or if you need to do less. And because different machines are going to burn different amount of calories and have different like kind of calorie trackers on them, because those calorie trackers are inaccurate for the most part, but at least it'll be the same amount of inaccurate every day if you're doing the same thing every day, because then it's at least the same. And then for activity, just try and keep your daily step count roughly the same. This one can be a bit challenging because days are going to be different, but if you try to keep it at a similar amount, it will only help you in the long run. And this is going to be a big one because you cannot see where you, like what direction you're really headed if you're not looking at where you came from. You know what I mean? So tracking your progress is going to be really important in your cut. Having some metric to work off is going to be crucial in order to make future adjustments and to ensure that what you're doing is working. So I kind of recommend two metrics to track your progress by. Once a week, let's say you pick Friday, first thing in the morning. I always recommend tracking your weight first thing in the morning because that'll be your lowest weigh-ins and most consistent. So let's say it doesn't matter what day you pick, or what time, as long as it's consistent. I recommend first thing in the morning, but it doesn't really matter end of the day. Just weekly weigh-ins, same time, same day, every week. Weekly progress pictures. Oh, weekly progress pictures, same spot, lighting, and poses, whether that be unflex, flex, whatever. Just make sure you're doing it in the same spot with the same lighting so that you actually have a metric to see the difference off of. Because keeping that, if you take a picture in one day and it's you with a pump and in good lighting and you just finished the gym and you did your cardio, you're going to look skinny and snatched and jacked. And then the next week you take your picture, say at the same time in the same day, but you have no pump, you've already ate two meals, and you haven't been to the gym yet, and it's in worse lighting, you're going to be looking your best in this picture and significantly worse the week later, just because the conditions are different. So it doesn't really matter what you do, just make sure it is consistent week to week. And then this is going to be the next real part about cutting, right? Like actually making sure your weight is going down. So progress is likely to stall in a deficit with this more passive approach without really dropping your calories too much. And it's going to take a while, right? That first 300 to 500 initial calorie drop is going to help you lose some weight, but it is potential for it to stall or maybe slow down a lot. And if you are unhappy with that and you're noticing that your weight is stuck or moving super duper slowly, um, you kind of have to make an adjustment if you want to continue progress, because obviously if you're doing the same things and you're not getting the results, then something is going to have to change. And there's kind of three ways you can do this. I recommend you can do maybe I recommend um, you can do maybe two of these at once, two of these like drops, these calorie drops at once. I don't really recommend doing all three. You can even just do one, you know what I mean? Because if it's different, then it's different. You'll notice change from what you change. But I just don't want, I would never recommend doing all three of these because this will essentially be dropping 300 calories immediately, which can just be hard on your body at once. So the first option is to decrease your calories. I say take away 25 grams of carbs or 100 calories from your diet, and this will just this will keep your protein amount the same, so that you are still able to build muscle the same way, and keep your fats the same, so that you are still able to keep all your hormones in check and absorb your vitamins and still feel healthy. So that's why I kind of recommend taking away from carbs, especially because we're eating so many carbs that only taking away 25, like for in that example before, going from 300 to 275 is not going to kill you. You know what I mean? But it is still 100 calories less that you are eating. And the second option is going to be just increasing your cardio. This can be either adding 5 to 10 minutes every day that you're doing cardio, or increasing your intensity. Like let's say on the Stairmaster, you go from level 8 to level 10 and keep the time the same. You're going to be burning an additional probably maybe 50 calories in that time period, and that can only help you. Or yeah, just adding 5 to 10 minutes, and then or you can increase your activity, and this can just be in adding 1 or 2,000 steps daily. And doing any of these three or two out of these three is kind of going to push you through that plateau that you've potentially reached in your deficit where you're not really losing weight anymore. This is going to be a big one when you're cutting. Obviously, the big challenge with losing weight is getting hungry. That is the majority of the issue that people face while cutting, is they want to overeat. Ways that you can kind of combat that. The first one I recommend, this is really big, this is one that's helped me a ton, is having a smaller eating window, right? Because before you eat your first meal, you won't really get hungry. It's kind of eating that makes you hungry in the future. You know what I mean? Or like when it feels insatiable, or like you really have to eat, is typically never when before the first time that you eat in a day, unless you have not ate for a very, very long time. So what I say is to push your first meal back as far as you can into the day. Because for example, if you eat your first meal at 8 a.m. and you go to bed at 11 p.m., this is a long time. But if you eat your first meal at 11 p.m. and your last meal at 11 p.m., you just shaved off 3 hours of potential hunger that you could feel in a day. You know what I mean? And now all your calories are in this time frame, And a lot of people typically get hungrier later in the night, so then you can have more calories to eat later in the day to combat that late night binging, that late night snack cupboard raid. And of course, water. I recommend 4 to 8 liters total in a day, like I said earlier. And then it's kind of a hack, but drinking 750 milliliters, like to 1 liter roughly, alongside each meal will just help you feel more full from the food that you're eating and kind of help you from kind of reaching to the snack cupboard again right after your meal because you still feel super hungry. This water will just help you feel more satiated after your meals. And then, of course, this is a big one, volume eating, finding low calorie options to add food quantity to your meals. Say you're eating beef and potatoes, add a handful of lettuce, man. It's like 20 calories, if that, like literally if that. And it can double the amount of food that you're eating. If your stomach is full, right? Your stomach is full, right? You're not going to want to eat more if you feel more full. You know what I mean? So that's going to help combat the satiety again. And then this is the most important. This is really the key. Learn how to cook. If you are literally eating boiled chicken and boiled broccoli all day, and you are not someone who, with the highest level of discipline known to man, you are going to crash out and you're going to be living off Domino's for a night and you are going to regret it in the morning and you are going to hate yourself. But if you are actually eating good food and seasoning your food and putting low calorie sauces on it and cooking your food properly so not all of your food is extremely dry and just disgusting, it's going to be easier to stick to your diet because at least you are looking forward to the food, right? No matter how, like if it's a small portion or it's a big portion or whatever, at least you're going to look forward to how the food is going to taste. You know what I mean? So learn how to cook, please. Season your chicken, 1000%. And then this is going to be another big one when it comes to cutting is staying healthy. Your body, there's a thing called homeostasis, which is where your body is basically fighting to be the same all the time. And your body does not want to lose weight, right? Unless you're extremely obese, your body is not wanting to draw body fat really ever. So implementing healthy choices into your day will keep you from feeling worse as you deepen yourself into the deficit. And the three main things that I'd look at here for staying healthy is your food choices. Obviously, eating majorly, like our majority whole foods is going to be the best, right? It's going to be unprocessed. It is going to digest better in your body, make you feel better, digest easier, better micronutrient density. Oftentimes, these whole foods are going to be more filling because there's less trans fats, less sugars that make you crave more sugars, just less bullshit, less fluff. You are eating what you know you are eating, right? There's no fine. You're eating chicken breast and you're eating vegetables and you're eating beef, and it's just gonna make you feel better in the long run. And try to keep any real processed food at a super minimum or on completely zero. That will help you feel better as you do this. And then the next thing is supplementation. I really recommend an omega complex because with your fats being lower, most likely than what you were used to, this is going to help your brain function to the best of its ability because omega 3s, 6s, 9s, whatever, are all kind of the fats that support your brain health. So keeping this high when in a situation where you might be a little bit deficient is going to keep your brain from being super duper fried when you're in deficit for a long time. And then electrolytes, this is really important because when you're eating less food, the hydration kind of matters a bit more because you may be lacking in certain micronutrients or macronutrients. And this hydration will keep your gym performance better and keep you feeling more full throughout the day. And then this is kind of just a filler one. If you are tracking your calories or your micronutrients or anything, or if you just know that you are deficient in something, take a pill for it. You know what I mean? At least like a multivitamin in a day, just so that you are trying your best to have all your micronutrients filled because you never know. If you have a deficiency and maybe you feel like shit all the time, maybe that's why. You know what I mean? It's called a deficiency for a reason. You are lacking something, right? So do your research, figure out what vitamins or minerals you maybe need. And then, of course, sleep. 7 to 9 hours nightly for the love of Jesus, mother flipping Christ. If you are not sleeping in a deficit, you are going to feel like shit. It is rest for your body. You are working hard, right? If you're doing this cardio and you're training every day or nearly every day and you are getting your steps in and you are putting the mental strain on your body of really monitoring what you are eating, the sleep is going to be crucial in keeping your stress down and making sure you feel rested and feel good day to day, right? get your sleep in. It is so crucial for everything in your life all the time, but especially when losing weight. Keeping your sleep really locked in is going to save you. I promise you that. And that is really going to be it for structuring a deficit, right? I might go into kind of different ways you could structure a deficit in the future, but this is a good baseline. And if this is your first deficit, this is really all you're going to need to know, right? You know how to find your maintenance calories, how to start your deficit, how to continue your deficit, how to calculate your macros. And if you have any other questions or anything else related to maybe cutting or losing weight or anything to do with it, ask them down below in the comment section. And if you don't, then I'm happy you watched this. Let me know. Let me know if you like this motherfucking video. And if you did like this motherfucking video, then like the motherfucking video. And next time we're going to be going over how to structure a bulk. Yeah, thanks for watching.